Hi everyone, and welcome to the Knit California podcast. My name is Leslie. I'm Knit California here on YouTube and also over on Instagram and TikTok. And today is episode 3 of my 2024 podcast series. I'm excited to be back with you. Today is Sunday, January 28th, for another podcast episode. I do have to say before we begin, I have been a little bit under the weather this week, so if you hear any nasaliness, congestion, my apologies. I had so much that I wanted to talk to you about today. I didn't want to skip filming. I am mostly recovered. It's just a little bit of congestion. So yeah, but let's get into it. I don't have any finished objects this week. I do have some new cast-ons, and I have made a lot of progress, I feel like, on all of my 1 million WIPs. So we're gonna go through them. We're going to stick with the same kind of format that we did in last week's episode. I have my goals that I set for myself for this week, and I actually changed it up a little bit. So when I finished recording last week's podcast episode, I had been setting my goals from Monday through the end of Sunday, but I'm filming the podcast on Sunday morning, so I actually finished some goals Sunday evening, and I just felt like it's going to confuse me if I'm keeping those goals checked off in last week's section, but I'm talking through the goals from this week's section. So I switched around how I'm writing out my goals now, and it's going to be from podcast to podcast. And I think that's just going to help me when I'm talking to you about all of these knits. So yeah, there's a couple of things that I finished that were on last week's list. Didn't get done last week, but got finished Sunday night, if that makes sense. But doesn't really matter. Got a fuzz. I'm gonna show you everything that I finished anyways. So yeah, let's get started. We are going to start with my Kal Cardigan. So this is my Kal Cardigan. The pattern is by Claire Jackson at Perfectly Knotted, and the yarn that I'm using for this is Bella Filato Studio in the colorway Cozy Flannel on her Bella worsted base. It's a 100% superwash merino, 218 yards. And again, it's this lovely pink variegated color with orange and then dark, almost black speckles. And I'm really loving how the color is being knit up. I showed this to you last time, but isn't that just so good? And you can see I have made some progress. So my goal for this from last week was to finish the back panel, and once I finish the back panel, I can connect all 3 sections, the back panel and the front right, front left. I did that, and then I wanted to finish the ball of yarn that I had that I was using and get ready to start another ball of yarn. And so that's where we're at now. Let me show you the back panel. You can see this progress keeper, my little candy progress keeper, was where I was at the last podcast, and I've got a good couple inches here that I have knit up since then. And I'll show you on the front as well. There we go. My whale tail is not sitting the correct way. There you go. But I was here, and now we're here. And you can see here's the armhole, and I've got a couple more inches completed under the armhole. So the whole thing is joined in the round. I don't have it on stretchy cords this week, otherwise I would try it on for you and show you where we're at, but I think we're in a really great spot. One thing I did change was the pattern for my size tells me to cast on 1 stitch under the arms, and I casted on like 10 stitches under the arms. The first version of the cardigan that I knit, this one in my green yarn, basically, I didn't understand really what the pattern was telling me, and so I knit this like shoulder seam way longer than I was supposed to, which means the body of my cardigan is like super wide, and I really like how wide it is, and so I didn't knit. I'm knitting my new one closer to pattern. I did not really extend this at all. I think I did a couple more rows, but not very many. And so the body of this one would not be as wide if I only cast on 1 stitch under the arm. So I casted on 10 stitches under the arm, just to give myself a couple more inches. But that's like almost 2 inches is 10 stitches. So double that, because I did it on both sides. It's like 4 extra stitches. 4 extra inches in the body. So, yeah, that's what I wanted. So that's what I did. Next step, I caked up another skein of yarn, and I'm gonna start working on one of the sleeves next. That's gonna be my goal for this week. I have 3 full skeins of yarn left, so 2 for most of the sleeves, and then whatever I have left plus the last one to finish out the body. This is gonna be like a cropped cardigan. That's how the other one fits, and I do like the style of it. I do like the fit of it, so that's what I'm going for again. Let me give you some of the stats on this cardigan. I have done some math on it now too that I don't think I had complete last week when we talked. So I'm knitting this on 5mm needles, and I'm knitting up the size 4, which corresponds with a 50-inch bust. The pattern recommends 20 to 30% of ease. So what that means is you measure, or you take your own bust circumference and you multiply that by 0.2 to get 20%. So for me, I'm at 42 inches times 0.2 equals 8.4. So if I add 8.4 to my, 8.4 inches of positive ease would be 20% of ease, and then 30% ease for me would be 12.6 inches of positive ease. So what the pattern recommends for me is somewhere between 8 and 12.5 inches of positive ease. So if I'm knitting the size that's 50 inches, that's about 8 inches of positive ease. So I'm right there in that measurement range. And then also, because I added those extra stitches under the arms, I should actually be a little bit over that. Potentially, what did I estimate, 4? Maybe closer to that 12 inches of positive ease. I'm not quite sure. We'll have to see where it measures when I'm done knitting it. I'm just looking at my notes to see if there's anything else interesting that I need to tell you, or any changes that I made. I don't think so. Since I did knit this sweater last year, I wrote down in my notes the changes that I had made on the previous one, so I make sure I follow these notes just in terms of how many rows I need for the sleeves and how long I want to knit the body. So I'm glad I have that in there. But that's the progress that I'm making on my Kal cardigan. At this point, I'm going to remove my progress keepers The 2 from the front panels, I don't think I need any more since now I'm joined in the round. And I'm going to move the one on the back. So we are here right now. If you hear any chewing, that's the dogs. And we're moving this down to where we are on the back panel. And then I guess, whichever sleeve I decide to pick up, I'm just gonna put a progress keeper here on like the edge of the sleeve. And when I pick up the sleeve stitches, I'll kind of move it out of the way, but I'll have that marker for like where I start the sleeve. I guess I can put one on both. You know, we'll just put one on both. You never know. Maybe I'll knit both sleeves this week. Probably not. That seems a little ambitious, but who knows what I'll be getting up to. Okay, there we go. So this one is ready to go for this week. Again, my goal for this is going to be just to start one of the sleeves and see how far I can get. Maybe I'll finish a whole sleeve. I don't know. Just gonna leave it at that. So that's my Kal Cardigan. Okay, let's move on next to my Ingrid Sweater. Okay, so I have made some really great progress on this. This is my Ingrid Sweater by Petite Knit, and I'll just show you the yarn that I'm using for this is Treehouse Knits. The colorway is Harvest Moon on her Dove DK base. It's again a 100% superwash merino base, 246 yards per 100 grams, and it's this really nice soft lavendery purple color that I absolutely love. And my goal for this week was to finish the back panel, knit the left shoulder, and knit the right shoulder. So there was a lot there was a lot going on with this one, and I'm happy to say I finished all of it. So okay, the ends on this sweater are absolutely horrific. There are so many ends here. Hi, Mud. What are you doing? Go lay down. Okay, yeah. Okay, to be fair, I was very, very close to finishing the back panel. Dun 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 dun. Trying to get a screenshot here. Okay, I think we got it. Okay, so here's where I was. Can you see this? I was right here. I had like 8 rows left of the back panel. So that was an easy one to complete. And then I completed both of the front panels. So you pick up stitches right here at the top of this double seed stitch section. You do the eyelet row, you do this double seed stitch section again, another eyelet row, and the little cross hatching, which actually comes in after you join the 2 for the neckline. So let me just show you. Okay, there we go. Can you see all these ends? They're everywhere. Okay. Oh my gosh. The cross hatching section just like looks so good. These little faux cables. That's like my favorite section, I think. But here it is. Okay, I know I talked about this last time. Like, it does go really far down on the shoulder, on the arm, but like that's the style of it. Let me give you the stats on the sweater. Ingrid Sweater. Okay, so I am knitting this on 4.5 millimeters for the body. When I get to the body ribbing, I will switch to 4 millimeter needles, and then for the neck ribbing, I'm going to do that on 3.5 millimeter needles. I'm knitting the size extra large, which corresponds with a 50.5-inch bust. It's the 5th pattern size, and according to the pattern, this is designed to have 8 inches of positive ease. So for me, that 50 inches is right at that 8 inches of positive ease mark. I'm gonna be honest, like, if this is the width of the whole body, I do think this is gonna be more than 8 inches of positive ease, especially because I'm using a superwash yarn. I know that this will grow when blocking as well, so it might end up being more than that, and I think that'll be okay. We'll just have to see how it actually fits once it's all done. But yeah, the other thing that I changed was the eyelet rows. I didn't like the way the eyelet rows are written in the pattern, how they're said to be done. So I just did a yarn over and a knit 2 together. That's how I've done eyelets in the past. They're quicker for me, easier, and they give the same exact look and effect. So if that's how you also prefer to do eyelet rows, I would say go ahead and sub in that method. The other thing to point out about this, which I forgot to mention last week, is this pattern is recommended a worsted weight yarn. I believe it's a DK plus like a mohair is what she uses in the pattern. I am actually just using a DK weight yarn. I'm not holding a strand of mohair with this. And I was able to, the reason I'm doing that is because I was able to meet gauge with just this DK weight yarn by going up to the 4.5 millimeter needle size. So the pattern gauge is 20 stitches and 30 rows per 4 inches, and my gauge when I swatched was 20 stitches and 32 rows per 4 inches. I've also since measured on the back panel what my like knit gauge is, and again it's right there at 20 stitches. So I'm like shocked. I'm usually not one to meet stitch gauge, but I'm right there meeting stitch gauge, so we should be good. So anyways, if you would also like to knit this and you have a DK weight yarn, just double check that you can meet that 20 stitch gauge and then just go for it using the women's pattern. I did have a conversation in my Instagram stories and like in my DMs because the men's version of this pattern says DK weight, but Petite Knit uses the Sandnes Garn Pure Gint for that, and it's like a really heavy DK weight that really almost borders on a worsted weight. So I had considered using the men's pattern, but a couple people said that it was missing some of the shaping, some of the rows, maybe like fewer eyelet rows, and then a couple other people said they were able to meet the gauge just using DK weight, so just do a swatch. So I'm feeling very good and very confident with the plan that I'm using and how it's turning out so far. So I just wanted to point that out. I'm loving it. So my goal for this week is to finish the front panel and hopefully join this in the round. And, oh my goodness. Okay, I would also love to weave in all these ends because when I start to get this many ends, it like really stresses me out, and so we're gonna take care of that. Okay. Buddy's drinking water. I am moving, my progress keeper was on the back panel. I'm moving it to the front panel, right here in the middle. And so we'll be able to see my progress on the front panel next week. Yay! I'm loving this so much. It looks so good. It looks so good. Okay, that is everything for my Ingrid sweater. What is next on the list? Next up is my Sweet Shop blanket. Okay, and I do have progress on my sweet shop blanket. I'm so excited about it. I think I have yarn attached to it right now. Oh, that's okay. So my goal last week was to complete 2 to 3 of my pink squares, and I did not get that complete at all. I didn't touch it at all last week. This week I had the same goal to complete 2 to 3 pink squares, and I actually completed all 3, and I have the 4th one on the needles. So, and I'm in the middle of, you know, obviously I'm in the middle of the short rows, so okay, what is happening here? So it's gonna look a little wonky with my needles in here, but I completed this pink square. This one, which is actually more peachy orange. That's okay. And this one, which again is also a little bit more orange. The first couple pink squares were really orange. And then I've got this one that I literally just started on the needles. So, here it is! Yay! That's my nephew wearing the hat I knit him for Christmas. And my sister-in-law said, "Wear your knits." So cute. Okay, sorry. Usually I put my phone on Do Not Disturb, but been getting distracted today. Okay, anyways, I don't really have stats on this, but the yarn I will tell you about. I didn't weave in my ends yet. The yarn that I'm using for this are 2 advent calendars that I had in 2023. The variegated skeins are all from Hedgehog Fibers, and the solid, semi-solid, tonal, that's the right word, tonal skeins are from Botanical Yarn. And when I started opening my 2 advent calendars, like the first day of December, I realized how well they would go together, and I was like, let's knit up the Sweet Shop blanket. So this is the Sweet Shop blanket by Laura Penrose, and I'm loving it. I absolutely love how all of the colors are coming together. It's just so fun. It's that like little boost of serotonin and color therapy that I sometimes need throughout the week. And yeah, I'm so glad that I chose to use like 2 multicolored yarn options, that each square is a different color. I think it's just so fun. So that's my Sweet Shop blanket. I have 4 squares left until I use every single color pair for the first time, and I'm done with the first half of my blanket. So I don't know if I can get all 4 done this week. My goal will probably be 2 with a stretch goal of all 4. And then I can start on the other side and start using all of the colors a second time. I think I showed this to you last time, but I've just been putting all the colors in this bag when I'm done with them. The plan is to keep the Botanical Yarn tonals in relatively the same pattern going back into the corner. So like pinks in the middle, then purple, then blue, green, then blue. There were only like 2 greens, so pinks, purple, green, and blue. And then I'm kind of just gonna pick sort of randomly from the Hedgehog Fibers variegated colors to fill out the other half of the squares. So it's gonna be really fun, and again, I'm loving this blanket. Okay, the next project on the list is my Oslo hat. Okay, so my goal, well, last week when I talked about the Oslo hat, I was like, sorry, I just went up and down the stairs to get the dogs out of here. I was saying that I was unsure about the fabric because I was using a 3.75 millimeter needle. And I was like, I'm gonna knit a little bit more of this, see how I like the fabric, and then I might switch to a 3.5 millimeter needle. Well, I did not knit any more at all. I just immediately switched to the 3.5 millimeter needle. I frogged the whole thing, and I'm back to the same spot where I was before frogging and redoing it with the 3.5 millimeter needle. So this is the Oslo hat by Petite Knit. I've talked about it so much on here. The yarn that I'm using for this is Paisley Knits. The colorway is Poseidon. It's on her Crabby DK base, which is again a 100% superwash merino wool, 246 yards per 100 grams. So typically when I knit the Oslo hat, I'll show you, it looks like this. Blue and green, a little bit of purple, but mostly blue and green. Typically when I knit the Oslo hat, I'm using 2 strands of fingering weight and I hold them double. But I had this really great color. This hat is going to be for a friend, and I knew this would be the perfect color for him, and so I wanted to just use a single strand of DK weight yarn. So because of that, when you knit with 2 strands of fingering, even if I'm knitting it on like a 4 millimeter needle, the fabric is still dense because you've got 2 strands there. With 1 strand of DK weight, it's not as dense. With a larger needle size, you really need to go, or for me at least, I needed to go down to the 3.5 millimeter to make sure the density of the hat, of the fabric, the weight of it was going to be correct and not end up all floppy. So that's what I did. I also cast on about 8 additional stitches. So for the men's hats I've been making, I've been casting on 120 stitches, and I think they're a little tight. The feedback I got from my brother was that the one I made for him fits, but it's tight. So especially going down a needle size, I wanted to make sure to add on more stitches. So that's what I did. And this is where we're at. I've got like literally an inch here. So my goal for this week on this is going to be to get half of the brim done. The whole brim is like 21 centimeters, and then you fold it over. So I would like to get at least like 10 centimeters done. That's about 4 inches. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But that's where we're at with the Oslo hat. Quick update there. I don't need to talk about this like too much, do I? I talk about the Oslo hat in like every single episode. So the last 2 projects I have are new cast-ons. And yes, we have already talked through 1, 2, 3, 4 projects, and I have 2 new cast-ons. That is correct. A total of 6 projects. Which seems, again, just unresponsible maybe, but I'm having so much fun with all of these projects, so it's fine. It's fine. Let me talk about, I don't know which one to talk about first. Talk about this one. All right. I technically cannot yet show you the yarn in this bag because it has not been released. So you may know I am an affiliate with Ruby and Roses yarn, and she just announced yesterday her new collection is going to be Taylor Swift themed, which is why this is in a Taylor Swift bag. And she released the first colorway on Instagram today, Sunday, and I don't know when she's going to release this colorway that I picked out. So just to be safe, I'm not going to show you what it looks like. I'm gonna show it to you in black and white. So, black and white. But as an affiliate, Addie offered to send me 3 skeins of this to knit something up, and I was like, okay, I know what color I want immediately, but I want to knit a cardigan with it, so I'm gonna need 6 skeins. So she sent me 3 for free, and then I purchased 3 more. So this was like half gifted, if that makes sense. And I knew right away that I wanted to... A sweater quantity really doesn't fit in this bag, but this is a Taylor Swift themed bag if you didn't catch that. I really knew right away I wanted to knit the field day cardigan with this, so that's what I'm working on. And I should have steam blocked this for you, but I've got the back panel short row section complete. I think next, I need to double check if I need to knit a straight section or if I just start picking up for the front panel here. But yeah, I know, I knit a whole short row section. Not only this one, I've knit 2 new whole short row sections this week. But this is where I'm at, and I can't wait to show this to you in color because it's really, really fun. So let me give you, we can come out of black and white now. I'm gonna not show you anymore what that yarn looks like, but let me give you the stats on the pattern that I'm knitting. So it's the Field Day Cardigan by Ozetta. I'm knitting the size large for a 50-inch circumference. It's the 4th pattern size, and again, this pattern recommends 8 inches of positive ease, so I'm right there with the 50 inches. I'm knitting this on 4.5 millimeter needles. The pattern gauge is 22 stitches by 32 rows, and my gauge that I'm getting right now is 21 stitches by 28 rows. So I'm pretty close stitch gauge wise. Row gauge, I'm like 4 stitches off, and my row gauge is actually like longer than what the pattern recommends. So when I was knitting the short rows, oh, I actually do know what's next. When I was knitting the short rows, it said, okay, by the end of the short rows, you should have like 6 3/4 inches or whatever. And I was already measuring at 7.5 inches. So I was like, okay, obviously I already have more of that length. So the next section is to knit a full, just, you know, chunk straight back and forth to finish off the back panel. So I'm going to knit that not to the number of rows specified, but to the length specified, so that I've got the length ready. It will be less number of rows for me to knit, but I think getting that length measurement is more important than getting that row measurement, row number, if that makes sense. So that's where I'm at with the Field Day Cardigan. Okay, I had to take a little break to rest my throat, but I've got one last sweater to show you, and that is the Farnham Sweater. So sneaky peek at my swatch. This is for the Farnham Sweater by the Knit Pearl Girl, and the yarn that I'm using for this, isn't it so good? This is Dusty Yarn Co. Hold on. Okay, there we go. The purple color is called Shook, and the cream color is called Baby Beach. They're both on their classic alpaca sport base. It's 100%, make sure I get this right, 100% baby alpaca 3-ply, 291 yards per 100 grams. I wish you could feel this yarn through the camera, and since you can't, really the only way is you've got to buy yourself some of this yarn. It is so soft, like, oh, I'm sure you felt 100% alpaca yarn, but it is so soft. And it's so drapey. I mean, look at this. It's gonna be so good in this sweater. So I did my swatch. Which yarn am I attached to? And I have cast on. Let me show you. I should have steam blocked this, but I finished the short rows. I'm so excited. I have wanted a striped sweater for so long, and I'm so happy that I'm finally knitting one. And this is one of the patterns on my Make 9, so I'm really proud of myself for that. And yeah, this is the progress that I've made so far. So let me tell you the stats on this. Farnham Sweater. Okay, so I do have things to say because this pattern is recommended a DK weight yarn, and I'm using a sport weight yarn. So I did have some differences in my gauge. So because of that, I am knitting the size G, which is the 7th size in the pattern. Initially, that is supposed to correspond with a 57.25 inch bust. Now, the recommended amount of ease for this pattern is about 14 inches of ease, so it's like a pretty oversized sweater. Now, the pattern gauge is 22 stitches by 32 rows. My gauge was 24 stitches by 32 rows, and I used my new gauge calculator that I'm working on. I just wanted to double check, and I figured out that like the size I was originally going to knit was one size down, the size F, the 6th pattern size, corresponding to a 55 inch bust. With my gauge, if I knit that size, it would turn out to be about 50 inches circumference, which would give me about 8 inches of positive ease. That's the size that I'm knitting like pretty much everything else that I'm working on right now. And so I actually decided to go up to the next size up, which corresponds with that 57.25 circumference. So with my gauge, I should get about 52.5 inches circumference, which would give me about 10.5 inches of positive ease. So that is what I'm going for. I am knitting this on 4mm needles for the body, and then I will use 3mm for the ribbing. And I started this 2 days ago on January 26th. So that's where we're at. Again, I'm really hoping that sizing works out, that my math works out, and it's gonna be so good. Okay, when I was in Ireland, my friend Faith, who's my new friend that I met in Ireland, she was on the trip. She was wearing, she has like a black and white version of the Farnham sweater that she was wearing the very first night when we had our like get to know everyone before the tour started, and I sat next to her and I was like, is that the Farnham sweater by the Knit Pro Girl? And she was like, yes. And I was like, I love it so much, you did such a good job, I need one. And then I put it on my Make 9, and I was chatting with Audrey from Dusty Yarn Co, and I was like, I have yarn for like pretty much everything on my Make 9. I'm feeling really good about it, but I don't have yarn for the Farnham sweater yet. And she was like, may I suggest our alpaca sport base, because she had just knit her Farnham sweater with this base. She used like a green color with a different cream colored yarn that they have in the shop for her version, and she said it turned out amazing and she really recommends it. And I was like, yeah, of course, I would love to copy what you did. And so that's when I picked out these colors to do purple with the white stripes. And yeah, I'm really happy with my decision. I'm loving it so much. So I need to pick out a progress keeper. And I'm just remembering I did not put a progress keeper on my Oslo hat or on my field day cardigan. So I need to pick out 3 progress keepers right now. I'm going to pick out the Sand Dollar. I should really still be using like wintry ones, but I can't help it. I like what I like. Oh, this ice cream. So cute. And Audrey sent this purple mermaid that I think one of her daughters made this progress keeper. So this is the one that I have to put on my Farnham sweater. I have to. So I'm gonna put this on right here. There we go. Perfect. And I've got my Oslo hat here. I'm gonna put the ice cream on the Oslo hat. You know what, we'll just put it on right on the last stitch that I did, so we'll know exactly where I started. Okay, perfect, there we go. And then I will make sure to put this on my field day cardigan. But yeah, that's my Farnham sweater. Okay, so in terms of acquisitions, that Dusty Yarn Co. was one of my major acquisitions this week. I did also want to show the bag that I'm keeping the yarn in, because this was an acquisition that I got this week. Hold on. Button it up and show you. This is from Kettle and Hearth Fibers. Yeah. And I have this bag, you may remember, also from Kettle and Hearth Fibers. So it's a different style, but I loved this fabric, one of her spring fabrics that she's coming out with that she was teasing on Instagram. And so as soon as it went live, I snatched it up. It's got a purple like shoulder strap on it. So it's like the perfect length to take around. And right now I've got 6 skeins of yarn in here, and there's definitely room for my project and like notions case, pouch, or whatever. So this is a great sweater sized project bag. And I just love this fabric. I think there are still some available on her website. I'm not an affiliate for her or anything, but I love her work. And she just started dyeing yarn, so you can go check that out on her website as well. So, Kettle and Hearth. Okay, that's all of the acquisitions. I just want to share, lastly, we will wrap this up. My voice really needs it. I set up my February month in my journal because that is February 1st is coming up this week. And so I just wanted to share with you, in the little break that I took between segments to rest my throat, I wrote down my weekly goals for this upcoming week. So just wanted to recap that, and then we will close out the podcast. So my goals for this coming week, we will see what happens on next week's episode. For the Kal Cardigan, I would like to start, maybe finish sleeve 1. The Ingrid Sweater, I would like to finish the front panel and join in the round. For my Sweet Shop blanket, I put the 4 pink squares. We'll see if I get all 4 of them completed, but I wanted to just put all of them on there since that's all I have left. The Oslo hat, I want to knit to 10 centimeters of the brim. The Field Day cardigan and the Farnham sweater, I want to finish the back panels of those. So I know that is a lot of goals. And I will just reiterate, I talked about this last week. I was pretty monogamous in my sweater knitting last year, and I really enjoyed it. But I have just been so inspired since the beginning of this year to cast on like all of these projects, all of these sweaters. and I'm really happy with working on like bite-sized pieces of all of them each week. I think planning it out in my notebook this way to like complete different sections, have a milestone marker for each project each week, is really helping me stay on task and still feel like I am making progress on every single project. And I think that's key, especially for me with having this many projects going at one time. So I am really enjoying it. And if it seems like it's a lot, it is a lot. I will also say this week, because I was sick, I did not go into the office at all. Usually I go in once per week, and my knitting time on that day seriously plummets. And I didn't like go out and like do many activities this week. Yesterday, Saturday, I stayed home all day. So I had a lot of knitting time this week to make all of this progress. So if you're also wondering like, how do I get all of this done in 1 week? I think I had more knitting time this week than I have in, the past month or so. And so I do feel like I did make a lot of progress this week. Now, this coming week, I really don't know what it's going to look like. I am heading up to LA to stay with my aunt for part of the week, so I don't know if I'm going to have like a lot of knitting time or a little bit of knitting time. Also, because of that, I think next week's podcast episode is going to be a bit late. I don't think I'm going to be able to film it on Sunday like I normally do, but I am still... either it'll come out midweek or we may skip next week. It'll just depend. And if you want to figure out and know, well, not figure out. If you want to know where I land with it, you can follow me on Instagram, and I'll be posting updates in my stories for sure. So that's the plan. And that's the end of today's episode. I hope you enjoyed. I hope my voice was not too much of a nuisance for you. And if you're not already, please subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, click the bell for notifications, leave a comment if you're loving any of my projects. I would love to hear about it. And yeah, go follow me over on Instagram. Okay. Everything I talked about will be linked in the description box down below, as it always is, and that's really it. Thank you so much for watching today. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you on the next one. Bye!